Good morning, and welcome to Sermon on the Mount Missionary Baptist Church Sunday School. Here, this 28th day of September 2025. We welcome you, and we extend our blessings and good wishes upon you. Today our lesson is going to come from Psalms 139. Psalms 139. And the theme of our lesson today is, nothing is hidden from God. Nothing is hidden from God. Page 20. Okay. So as we started out in this quarter, and we started out with going back to the beginning, and what it is to emphasize the importance and the singleness of God. Amen. So as it says in our lesson, that God is, I wanted to read us. Let's turn to page 19. Right, page 19. And that has the 130, some of the verses from 139 Psalm, starting with verse 1. I just want to make sure we are able to look at those and understand those. I want to read some of it. Psalms 139, verse 1. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my down sitting and my uprising. Thou understandest my thoughts afar off. Thou compressest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. Verse 4. For there is not a word in my tongue, but, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thy hand upon me. Verse 6 says, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is too high. I cannot attain unto it. Whether shall I go from thy spirit, or whether shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, therefore thou art there. And those scriptures are familiar because they're part of the scriptures from David. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness will cover me, even the night shall be light about me. See, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. For thou hast possessed my reign. Thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. It says 14, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My substance was not hid from thee, and I was made in secret, cautiously wrought in the lower part of the earth. Verse 16 says, thy eyes did not see my substance, yet being imperfect, and in thy book all my members were written, which is continuous, were fashioned, yet when as yet there were none of them. So this is all talking about the omnipotence, omnipresent, and omnipotent of God, period. period. And it says nothing is hidden from God. And once we like I say, once we understand the singleness and powerfulness of God, then there's a part where everything else just seems to fall into place. And here what they're talking about in the lesson, the inescapable God knows us. And it says the inescapable God pursues us. And we continue on with the inescapable God fashions us. I think to pursue us is something that we have to understand. We have a tendency, the closer we get, the faster we want to run away from. Because God pursuing brings a lot of correction for us. So it says, as David moved from reflection to his response, it became clear that he was happy, David, not taunted, when he wrote Psalms 139. In verse 5, David used a term that usually referred to an army besieging a city. Being besieged by God would be terrifying for a unrepentant sinner. It says in the praise of Psalms 139, verses 5 and 6 was less explicit than it would be later in the psalm, but it started with David's dazzling bewilderment of God's merciful knowledge of his entire life. And I know if you read the Psalms and heard a lot of the stories about David, that was one thing that seems to be a mystery. How could David have that awareness and knowledge that God is aware of everything that he do? See, so that's one thing about David is he has ability because he is of God's heart. I think he's a little bit closest to God's will, and he's able to bring out more of God's ways. So it says, the praises of Psalms 136 and 5 and 6 was less explicit than it would be later. So what they're saying, as you read the Psalm, you see that David's understanding is building and building and building. And so his praises start with the meager praise of I love you and thank you, but they build up to total submission to God and recognition of God's power. So as we talk about, we say a lot in reference to the Old Testament when we talk about God. Well, we say, well, he's the great I am. But the inclusiveness of his powers and all that he is in that I am. And so that's what David brings us in Psalms 139 to a part of understanding the greatness of God and the totality of his powers. And that is something that we have to understand as Christians. That's why I said earlier, we have the problem of we want to run away from God. And I think it's not because of God's pressure on us to stay within his commands, but pressure on ourselves to stay away from the sinful part. So it says, it's talking about how David is trying to put forth this psalm. In this psalm is what he sees as the ability of God God to bring man to the highest and exalted position that he could get man to come to. Because man has a tendency to want to keep himself here in the lowliness on earth, but God is trying to get him to transcend his consciousness to the point of understanding that you are in his realm wherever you are. And
Reverend Campbell, you mentioned that God is the I am, and people want to have a distance from him. But once they realize how powerful that phrase, I am, they have a better understanding and to know that he is omnipresent.
mm-hmm,
So you can't run from him.
mm-hmm,
You can try, but he gives you that free will to come to him. So my prayer is that everyone can inherit the rewards of knowing him personally,
mm-hmm.
because when you look over your life, you know it was no other way but God, because you know the times he saved you. Can you imagine the times you didn't know he saved you?
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you bring up something which I think we have to close the gap on, and that's the personally, making it personal. You know, people don't want to make it personal because it interferes with their selfishness, you know. But, and you're correct. It has to be, I won't say it has to be, but let's be honest. If you're in a relationship in any manner, you have to devote some personal feelings or structure, into that relationship. And here you're in a relationship with Jesus, and you have to devote something personal from you to him. And it's so easy because he's all receptive. You know, he'll receive everything that you can bring, but the thing is, we don't receive all that he has. See? And like I say, God pursues us. God knows our fallacies. You know, and that's what the reading in Psalm 139 is explaining. It says, verse 2, thou knowest my down sitting and my uprising, thou understandest my thoughts afar off. See? And so that is to say, but there's an area of comfort. And there's that place of rest, you know. If we relax and understand just all what that encompasses, you know, to be in that spot and that place where God is the totality of your existence, is peace and is comfort, you know. There's a lot they're talking about this morning, and that's something that we deal with. Omnipotent, omnipresence, and omnipotent. And that's our God. That's our God. But what does all those three things mean to you? His omnipotence, his omnipotence, and his omnipresence, you know. And it's just like, driving until you really understand the importance of driving a car and how that car can not only be a pleasure to you, but how it can be a weapon and deadly for you if you don't handle it correctly. You know, to just be rambunctious about driving that car, then you could injure yourself and someone else. So you have to be careful with that. And you have to understand that you got 5,000 pounds of metal and steel that you're in command of, you know. And so you have to reflect on that. And that's what we have to understand, the power of God, you know, how God, through all his different attributes, is able to not only be powerful for us, but to be loving and caring in the same respect, you know. Whereas he can look at our faults and not take them to the point of being something that would produce wrath from him, you know. And so, and there's this thing is, we know, that's just like, it's one thing that always puzzled me when I was coming up, the knowledge of grandmother. You know, how grandma could sit in that room, or stay in that house, and yet now knew what was going on, you know, outside. And how she was able to tell you, not tell you, but give you a solution to something that you're doing without even her seeing you participate in it, whatever. And that's how God, as it's saying here, nothing is hidden, because he's an inescapable God. You know, nowhere you can go and nothing you can do. Yeah, just surrender. Amen. And so that's it talks about how God in the creation always is going to refer to creation when we mention God. And it says there's 4 truths that they talk about here in the lesson. First, God made his man, his internal organs, which is a sense of the phrase possessed by rain, what leads you and what guides you. And then it goes on to say, I'm on page 32. Second, God made the substance, a rare word that seems to refer to bones. So here it's talking about all the composition of man internally, as far as his makeup is concerned. So, third, it says God formation of David's body is described as a knitting or weaving project. David was amazed at how personally God has always been. And it says, fourth, David reflected on God's omnipotent plan for his life. God knows all of David's days before they're unfolded, and that truth made the future less daunting. And it's just, as we were just saying, that the one phrase, surrender all. You know, if you could just surrender all to the point of understanding, you're going to be okay. That's like the understanding when you first ride the elevator, you're a little fearful of it because it's something you haven't done before. And what it does is really outside of the human anticipation, because getting in something and having it move you that speed is something man was not ready for. And that elevator, but we have to understand that we must honor all that God is. And once you start honoring all that God is, then that takes you somewhere. That brings you into his realm and his area where now he can really talk and work with you individually. You know, as I said. And that thing of praying is very important. And understanding that God is in control. He's with his people, and he's able to structure, fashion, and to carry out his plans in such a way that it not only succeeds, but is helpful along the way. You know, he works with us and works through us and work us to such a point where we're better off than we were. You know what I mean? And in such a way that it doesn't bother you. Because, you know, sometimes information and instructions are not something that we can deal with because we feel that it's going to cause us some personal harm or delay, you know. And so we don't really want to deal with it, you know. But after you think about it, yeah, but as the lesson says, God is in control. You know, you need to get yourself out the way. You know, nothing you can do. Man, we have to realize that he made us for him. You know, God made us so we can have a life and he could have someone that he could fashion and lead and put his love in. You know what I mean? And so that's our main thing. What we need to do, stop and be recipients of God's love. You know, he's in control. And in David's 139 Psalm, you can see that he makes an emphasis on God being in control from before he was born in his mother's womb to where he is today. And, you know, I think that's the beauty of all, is understanding that we ain't done nothing. We'll just breathe in and breathe out. And that's control, you know. So we just have to stop and understand that what does the lesson say? Nothing is hidden from God. Nothing, you know. And so we have to understand that nothing is hidden, and he's in control. You know, that's what we have to understand. He's in control. So that's our lesson for today. So we'll go to.
I'm just saying, once you come to the realization of him being in control, you can just go even deeper. He the one that made you. So it's like, you know, it took me to get to this age to realize, you know, if he in control, who better than the one who made you, created you?
Yeah.
That's not
You have to get to that point
Right,
where
exactly,
they know
right.
know that.
Yeah.
And that's our job, our responsibility to share the
exactly,
goodness
yeah.
of God. The goodness.
Yeah. That's why I said when I got to 38 is when the onion when the skin was starting scales are starting to be
Yeah.
peeling off the eyes, you know. And I'm like, it's like he started showing this. So when I started seeing him, you know, he was always there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, and I think that has been some of the fault. It's a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because I remember coming up, they didn't have conversations as to how you have a personal relationship with God.
They didn't.
It was how you join in with the community
Right.
and have a relationship with God.
Right. Cause we just follow.
Yeah, you just follow along. And that brings in an impersonal part that we create, I won't say create, I'm sorry, that we build within our psyche as our relationship with God.
Yeah,
We feel we have to go through someone else to have a relationship. See? But then someone turns around and tell you, no, you don't have to do that.
Right.
Here it is here.
They share it.
Just
Like
relax.
she said, share it.
Yeah. But you have to understand God's in control,
Yeah.
you know. So I think, and it takes a while, and as you were saying, Hazel, it takes a while, but I'm under the understanding that it wasn't so much the scales coming off of my eyes,
Yeah.
it was the softening of my heart.
And that's it. That's when he start revealing. When he started showing you who he is, you know.
Yeah.
Because I think we talked about that last week. He doesn't reveal himself to everybody, you know.
But I think, you know, you start releasing stuff.
Yeah.
You realize that didn't help me, that's not helping me, and is not part of my life which will keep me free.
What you say? Condition of the heart. That's
That's
what.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think what happens, I was telling some people last week that if you want to do something, 9 out of 10 times you have to change your environment.
Yes, you do.
You know,
Yes,
you want to wear a suit every day, you're going to be in an environment which does not necessitate
Right.
or welcomes you wearing a suit every day, you know. So if you want to do something,
Yeah.
get in that environment that's doing it.
That's even with like a person with an addiction. I mean, once you go through, you know, you got clean and you release, you got to change your environment. You can't keep going back to the same, you know.
And that's true. Yeah.
And that reminds me, when my two oldest sons were in junior high school, I love to see boys and young men in silk shirts and slacks.
Yeah.
And Stacey Adams, I bought them a whole week worth, and it wasn't cheap. So I put out their clothes. I found them clothes in the bottom of the hamper with the tag still on them. I was like, why y'all ain't wearing that? Mama, they don't wear that at school. I'm like, oh, Jesus. But my thoughts was not, and that's conducive of the environment.
Right.
But
Right.
I was totally upset.
Look, I learned too. I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mother was a seamstress, and she just made stuff. She could run across a piece of material. Next thing you know, I had a vest or a shirt, and it was up because I remember one time she made this. Years later, I understood it, but she made this collarless jacket, and there was nothing wrong with it,
No.
you know, but it was yellow.
Oh.
Now here I'm trying to show the, you know, put forth my little oomph in the neighborhood, but you can't do that on a yellow jacket. Oh my goodness! And I don't know why, but every time she picked up a piece of material to make something, it was, I won't say loud, but
A bright color.
a bright color.
That's because bright colors look good on us.
Yeah, but you're
Well,
not
but
trying to grow up. You're not trying to grow up in the
I
hood.
already know.
Yeah.
'Cause you know they gonna
Yeah.
talk about you.
And the thing about it, I never had any brothers and sisters, so everything that come up on me, I had to take care of myself individually. You know, and it was a thing, and because she always made for Easter, I knew I was gonna get a shirt, you know, and it was gonna be a nice color shirt, and she made clothes for everybody, you know, in the neighborhood, and she was good at it. But I just always hated her selection of color, and you couldn't tell her.
No, you can't.
No.
Cause she's a seamstress.
Yeah. Yeah. But and that I think is some of the things that we have neglected in some of our Christian foundation building is to be have an air of honesty.
Yeah.
And to listen to our experiences of those that have went before us. You know what I mean? But then, too, you have to understand some of those that went before us had no idea how to tell us,
Right.
you know. And their manner of telling us to go left was just go where I said.
And that's what we was told, too.
Yeah.
Just do what I said.
And so most of that we just put up a reaction to. And I think that's some of the problems that we experiencing now with the gap between our seniors and our adults.
Yeah.
You know, and well, I'll say our adults and our young adults, you know, because there's a gap where things were just not communicated in a way which was
Conducive to their language.
loving and kind, you know, and informational.
Yeah.
And now we know because we made so many
We
mistakes.
didn't love in the information
Yeah.
to them. Yeah.
And we have so many things wrong that it had to be our fault. It's impossible for us to think that society got this way on its own, you know.
Right.
And Christianity is to the point of annihilation and to the point of just not being warm,
Yeah.
you know. But as our lesson said today, God, you can't hide from God.
No, you can't.
You just can't hide from God. And that's the first thing. Nothing is hidden from God.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care how much you sneak in the house, you can't hide nothing. I don't care how much you try to get in before sunup, you still can't hide nothing. You know.
It's like it's like the conversation. I'm always, for some reason, I guess God had me in a position where my daughter she's searching. You know, now she received the Lord and everything. She's received, but it's her relationship that needs building with the Lord. And she came to me, and I said, Ashley, because sometimes she be so hard with her tone. I said, tone it down, because I said, take the wall down. I said, you don't have to be defensive when you speak. You know what I'm saying? When you're speaking like that, no matter who you're speaking to, your child or anybody else. But what I asked her is, I said, what do you think this life is about? I said, this life is about him. It ain't about, we have nothing to do with it. We just partakers in the life. He allowed us. I said, this life is about him. So until you come to the realization, and you was taught this coming up, but like we all did, we all strayed, but we came back. But I said, but until you come to that realization, until you seek and search that relationship, that closeness to him, I said, it's not going to happen the way you think. I said, because you think you doing all this.
There you go.
You didn't do it. He gave it to you.
And that's the same thing that happened to my daughter, Teresa.
Yeah.
And always have up so many fronts. And, you mad at your shadow. you know, you got to relax.
Right, right.
You know,
Yes, there you go.
I don't understand why you're mad anyway, because you haven't came this way before. So why are you mad at what you're encountering?
Right.
Learn how to deal with it, internalize it, use it. You know, make it work for you.
Yeah.
All that madness you got going out there, you put a smile on it, boy, you could have 600,000 friends. But look at you, every evening you by yourself and with yourself.
What better time?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. So we're gonna go to, we didn't pick any for last week, and I don't remember the phrase that I used. I said we wasn't gonna pick any for last week because I think if we all read the lesson, then we'll be fresh for today. So let's go to our practical points, and they're on page 2 and 3, right? 23. All right. Let's go to our practical points. I was supposed to have pre-picked some. That's what it was. It says, number one is good. We can take comfort in the fact that God knows us completely. Completely. But I don't know if we want to take comfort in it because we don't want anybody to know us in that manner.
But he made you. Oh, God.
Number two, we can take comfort in knowing that God is with us wherever we go. And that's true. That's true. Number three, even the darkest circumstances are not difficult for God. That we have to really understand.
Yeah.
I'm on page 23.
Because when you realize you see your darkest circumstances, you realize, I mean, depending on where you are in your walk, you realize, well, I mean, he allowed this, so what is he trying to show me? What is he trying to teach me? You know, I've come to grips, like, okay, Lord, if I'm going through this, what are you trying to show me? What are you trying to teach me?
Exactly. Exactly. And so life began at conception and should be celebrated. That's a 3 o'clock discussion.
Right.
No matter our physical features, we can praise God for.
All right.
What's the CA?
I don't know. Have it on that.
I think the C was in error. I think it was supposed to be for a wonderful.
Wonderfully designing.
Yeah.
C was in error.
All right, Miss Jones. Okay.
I think they just need to take it out. Just God, thank God for wonderfully designing us.
All right, then that was number 5, so we can fly to number 6. What'd you say, Gladys? Huh? Okay. We can do research number 1. If God knows our thoughts before we speak, why pray? Ooh. If God knows our thoughts before we speak, why pray? Because I think the only way to combat that would be in constant communication with God.
Yeah.
If you have during the day not an error, but a habit of constantly talking, having a conversation, I think that's what most people don't do.
Yeah,
you know.
He wants you to open your mouth.
Yeah, because we only come to God when we feel that there's a personal need to talk to God.
In what way do you communicate with your friend? Because he's my friend. I talk to him.
Yeah.
I speak to him. And you want that in the atmosphere. Because he's going to speak back. But
Yes,
you got to listen. But, Lord have mercy, I talk to him all the time. People think but I not only do I need to speak it, I need to hear it.
Yeah.
Even my own prayer or my own thoughts that I'm speaking to him, I need to hear that too. So he knows everything, yes. But you need to speak
Speak
it
it out. Yep.
to that personal friend. That makes it personal. It really makes it personal. So I'm not gonna. I know he knows my thoughts. I
But
know
why
that.
pray?
Because I'm talking and praying to my friend, the one who can fix whatever I'm praying for. I need to hear it that I am talking to my friend, to the one who controls everything. And when you hear things, whatever words there are, they get stuck in your brain. So if I'm thinking, no, I want to speak mine. I'm sorry. I need to hear it too, because I know he's going to answer it sooner or later. But I need to know that I, from the
So
depths
what's
of
the-
my soul, spoke it out to him.
So what's the different connection in speaking and praying?
That's what I'm saying.
Pray.
Praying out loud.
When I'm praying, I'm speaking. Praying out loud is the
Right.
key.
Right.
But when you pray out loud, what are you doing? You're speaking. You're sending out words. And these words that I'm saying now is my prayer, Lord Jesus, but you know my prayer. But I need to speak it to you. I need to speak it in the atmosphere. And praying out loud is speaking.
But in your speaking, in your continuous conversation with God, during a daily walk, are you not speaking the contents of your heart?
Absolutely.
And so when you pray, do you not pray the contents of your heart?
Absolutely.
So would you not have, during the course of your normal conversation, have not mentioned or exercised those petitions that you bring up in prayer?
Generally, I'm speaking. When I'm praying, I also speak out loud. And when I pray, because I don't need to.
So I think that's
to
where we
speak
are.
to-
You keep saying
to
speak.
ask for things. I don't need to petition for things. But sometimes I just want that conversation. But when I pray, I speak it in the atmosphere, because I will start, Our Father, which art in heaven, and I need to speak that out loud. So yes, I do pray out loud. I do pray. Sometimes I don't pray out loud. But I need to know from the depths of my soul what I'm praying for, who I'm praying to, because he is there. No matter where I am, because in my car have a lot of conversations in there. But yes, praying, to me, I can pray it in solitude. I can pray it in silence. But my prayers aren't always in silence.
So what you're saying is, when I'm speaking in one conscious. I'm communicating with God. And then when I'm praying, I'd rather use talking.
I do.
Talking to God.
Out loud, I do.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. So, I think that's the connection. And the joining part is, I don't think there's a difference in our speaking and our prayer. It's just the fashion, I think it's in the mind. How are we conveying what we're asking or our petitions to God?
There you go.
When I'm talking to God, I'm just having a conversation with God.
Right.
But when I petition him through prayer.
Yeah, when I'm praying, I'm petitioning.
And I'm praying out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't say necessarily praying out loud. I don't.
To me, I do.
think I have to.
I do. It's a personal preference.
Yeah.
I do.
Not all the time. It ain't all
Yeah,
the
it's
time.
not all the time, but I prefer to speak.
But when it's something lays heavy
Oh Lord, have
on my
mercy.
heart,
Yes, Lord, it's in the
like especially when I'm praying for my family,
Yes, Lord. Yes. It's
I have to.
coming out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
And number two, if God is everywhere, why does he sometimes feel distorted,
It's distant.
distance?
So, because you know what? Sometimes when he's silent, it doesn't mean no. It's just he does his best work when he's silent. Because with the silence, you feel like he's not close. I mean, some people, I don't. When I don't, I just have to stand. After I do, I stand. I stand and I wait. I wait.
But do you not think that it's not him, that it's us? Because sometimes you're in that closeness with God. And sometimes you can have a conversation and you can just feel like, whoo, I got everything in, I've done everything, and that was an awesome time with God. But then sometimes you can't get to that point.
Because, and you're right, it's not him, it's us.
Yeah.
It's not, he's not distant.
Yeah.
Because when he don't respond to what you're asking for, or you're in a situation and you feel lonely, you may feel there's a distance, but the distance is not him.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to understand how we're going to think that he's in a distance when he's everywhere.
Right.
See? And so that's what has to formulate our
It's
conscience.
a mental thing, yeah.
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere.
You know,
He's everywhere.
because we used to take people up to the sensitivities up in the mountain. All right, you got to find God and see where God is. But he's the same place he was down in the ghetto.
Right. Okay.
He's with you.
Okay.
Amen. How should we respond? Number 3, how should we respond to the fact that God knows everything and is everywhere? Acceptance is what we was talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
How should you respond?
Yeah. All right, we've answered. We'll go to our next week's lesson. God warned Pharaoh through dreams. And that's one thing you have to understand. God warns a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you're doing something extremely bad, God is going to warn you.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. The thing about it is his voice is so soft and still that you're too busy being evil, you can't hear it.
Right. all that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And next thing you know, boom, it happened. Oh man, how did I get into this? Okay, so that we got this. What's that? Ooh, October. Next week, I'm on page 28 for next week, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, 28. Let's do God prepare for protection of his people. Let's do number 2. That's my favorite word in that curse. Because we have so much love that we never enter into that area of God's curse. Anybody else got another one? Number 2. 5. Did I hear that? Number 5. 2 and 5.
2 and 5.
Beg your pardon?
You said 2 and 5.
Is that the 5th? Yeah. Yeah, it has to be. The next week is the 12th. Okay, that practical points next week is 2 and 5. Anybody got a research and discussion? All right, we're going to have to start reading ahead and I made it. Okay, we're talking about number 1 in research and discussion. Does God still speak to people through dreams today? What cautions should we take when someone claims to have a message directly from God? Want to do number 1 in research and discussion? I think that's an interesting topic, if all participate. Okay, so we're gonna do number one in a group discussion. Okay? All righty then. Anything else? That in this part of our Sunday school. And now we'll have our collection verse.